You don't have to. You can do whatever you want to do. You're the IT guy.
Well, we're already streaming, so.
Yeah,
okay.
You've got the power.
He does.
I
he
have
gets to click the
power.
buttons. Don't trust him with power. It's kind of dangerous.
Oh no, I'll burn it all down. Okay.
All right.
I'll do the first little intro and then.
Okay, thank you.
No, didn't work.
Doggone it.
Immediately failed. What did I do wrong?
What happened?
I don't know. Now I'm confused. That shouldn't happen. Like, I disabled the other one. So we're streaming on both of them now, but I gotta fix that.
Okay.
I don't know why it's doing that.
What is it doing? Is it taking away the video?
I'm not gonna take time to explain.
Okay, that's fine.
It'll make it take longer. But USB audio codec. That's running.
Okay.
That's the one. I'm gonna close this and start it again. That might do it. Sorry.
I'm not offended. You don't have to apologize.
Okay. Welcome to the About Sex podcast. I'm Joshua Skirtu, and with me, as always, is my lovely wife, Angela Skirtu. Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm sick.
I know Josh is sick today, everybody.
I have a cold, so everybody out there, you get to hear me go into the mic.
He will try not to.
I will try not to.
Please.
I have warm tea. And Angela's going to go ahead and introduce our guest today.
I'm going to introduce our guest today. So this is Jen Jester of Birth Wisely Doula Services. And in the near future, midwifery services. She's an experienced doula and has served over 300 St. Louis families over the last 13 years. You're finishing your Bachelor of Science in Midwifery, and you plan to get certified as a professional midwife early next year. Would that be 2018?
That would be 2018.
Awesome.
Yeah. That is next year.
All right.
That is the next year.
You're so good at
Okay, why don't you
counting.
tell us a little more about that? Because that is a long paragraph to read.
So let's start with what a doula is. What is a doula?
What is a doula? And not a doula oblongata.
Yes,
we kept
not
saying
a part
that.
of the brain.
It's not the
That's
part
right.
that makes the alligators
but I am
angry.
very smart.
Oh, yeah.
You are. Tell us more.
So a doula is a trained, non-medical birth professional that provides informational, physical, emotional, and sometimes spiritual support to people when they deliver babies. So this means that I'm sometimes an advocate. I'm sometimes a shoulder to cry on. I'm a consultant of sorts during the pregnancy and during the birth. I'm in the birth room. I'm coaching.
Are people beating you?
Sometimes. I did have a woman break a finger once.
Oh, wait.
Of
they-
yours?
Of mine.
Holy cow.
Yes.
She broke your finger.
She broke my
I
finger.
was reading her
Right.
paper earlier, and she said somebody spit on her once. So I was like, I think
that's
people are
another good
beating her.
story.
So wait, how'd she break your finger?
Well, it's a physical event. So people
Birth is?
often squeeze your hands
Oh, yeah.
whenever they're experiencing birth contractions. And so this woman actually had arthritis, but she was able to break my finger. So I learned that you don't offer the whole hand like a handshake. You just offer your thumb, and
I
they
see.
squeeze your thumb
Whoa.
instead.
So then
or
they
else
can
you get
only
a finger
break your
broken.
thumb.
That
Yeah.
way.
Wow, because
Yeah.
it's so like they're bearing down and
Yeah,
it's so
because if
painful.
you get two
That's
fingers
right.
together.
You know,
guess
I was
can
really
crush
lucky.
them.
I didn't have to do that because I had a C-section. I didn't feel anything.
Oh, yeah.
That is the benefit, for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
There were
You know,
negative
to pick your
parts,
baby's
but yeah.
Pros and
birthday
cons, you know,
there's
cut
ups
open
and
scar,
downs.
but, you know, it was
Right.
a little easier.
Yeah,
Well, so
totally.
what do you like about being a doula?
Oh man, I love the challenge of never knowing what I'm walking into. So
Yeah. Every day is something
problem-solving.
new.
Every day is something new. People are interesting, and everybody's got their story. Everybody has their own birth experience that we don't know what to anticipate. So walking in, problem solving, helping them reach their goals, and of course being an advocate and a buffer for some negative things that can happen during birth happen to be something that I like. I like to be a voice when someone can't find their own,
Right.
if that makes
Like
sense.
Somebody
Like
who's in
advocate for
need.
themselves?
Advocating. Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
you
hard
know what
to
it
do.
reminds me of? Remember that Monty Python movie? Have you ever seen the
Meaning of Life?
The Meaning of Life and
Yeah.
that
Oh,
pregnancy?
yeah.
Like, oh my God, it was terrible.
What
they're
do I
like,
do? You're not qualified.
You're not qualified. Yeah.
That's after we watched, like after I had my baby, we watched that and we were like, oh my God, that's exactly what the pregnancy experience was like for
Yeah.
us. Here's your baby.
Here's your
And
baby.
they ran across literally in the exact same fashion.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
It was funny because like one woman was running and the other one trailed with the placenta in her hands, like, they quickly held the baby up. Here's your baby, and kept running. I'm like, am I supposed to follow them?
Like, we go? And I
somebody
was stuck
tell me
on
what
the
to
table,
do.
So
Yeah,
Right.
like they just pulled it out.
man.
Like it was
Right.
awesome.
So
I
is
actually
that what
watched
the
it.
experience
It
is
was
like
cool.
for you?
Well, for me, I'm trying to keep you connected to the experience.
Okay.
So I ask questions of the staff. I let you know what your rights are as the partner. I let you know what your rights are as the gestational parent or the person who's delivering the baby. A lot of that is doing some prep work, right, to make sure that we know what questions we need to be asking, and sometimes we're thinking on the fly. So if you wanted to be with your baby, nobody in that delivery room is going, "Hey man, now it's your turn. Go see your baby." But your doula can walk you right over there and say, "Hey, let's go touch your baby." You can talk to your baby.
I know what to expect. Like I didn't
weren't
know
sure
what
where
I
to
was
put your
supposed to
hands.
do with my hands. I
Right.
really did. Like I was like, am I supposed to be in the room for this stuff? Like
Exactly.
I didn't know anything.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of direction, and maybe
Yeah.
they're in crisis. I don't know, but they just
They're
seem like
not.
we're getting this stuff done.
No, they're just they're following their routine, and so they're doing their job.
They're doing their job. They
So
don't care
my
about
job is to make sure that your experience is a good one, and
see.
I can tell you,
Okay.
what to expect before you walk into the room, how you can comfort Angela during that time, that you actually can hold your baby when you're in the OR. You don't have to just watch her from afar. You don't have to just hold her tight. There's lots of things that you can do to kind of stretch what the staff is used to when you have a trained professional with you.
So what should people know if they were like having their first baby? Like what kinds of things should they be advocating for themselves?
Well, just know that you always have a choice. So if your staff member says, "Hey, you have to get in this bed," you can come right back and say, "Well, what if I don't want to be in that bed?"
Oh,
Okay,
yeah. And you can use unique
They'll be
positions
like, give
too,
her a
right?
sedative.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to do. I heard that like the normal position. I'm gonna just so you guys know it's like this. I hear that that's not necessarily the best position.
It's
The
not.
stirrups.
Giving birth. The stirrups.
No, it's
That's
better
right.
for riding
better
a horse.
for the
Actually,
OBGYN.
Right, that's
Yeah.
right. It is better for the OBGYN. I did have an unfortunate experience with an OBGYN. And while I was there, I told my client, "Well, a car mechanic has to be able to see the parts, honey." So no, if we let a person deliver,
That's hilarious.
I know
compared you
it's
to
kind
a
of funny
car.
and condescending and misogynist
but
all at the
very
same
hilarious.
time.
I
No,
get
he
it.
just compared you to an inanimate object that
He
he's
sure
working
did.
on.
Hey, that was very keen of you.
All right, what else?
So no, if we leave a person to their own devices to deliver their baby, they will
They would
most
probably
likely
do
deliver
terribly.
on hands and knees.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because that's the instinctive like
that's the
bearing down.
instinct.
Because you can
bearing
bear
down.
down. You've got
Oh,
a
yeah.
little bit of, I guess, gravity.
Gravity,
help.
And you're bent at the hips, and it
Oh,
lets
okay.
a
and
back
helps the
door
baby
exit.
pass.
Yeah.
Well, and it also reduces tearing. It slows the birth down a little bit, and it makes the widest space in the pelvis. So that's
Oh.
why being on your back, that lithotomy
so
position,
great.
is not ideal.
And that's why some people like doggy style.
That's exactly right. There's more space.
Yeah, because that's what we need, more space in there.
Not less.
Doesn't hurt as much. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so then what other things should people know going into the pregnancy situation?
Okay. So that you can be comfortable. You don't have to be uncomfortable. So having somebody with you can help you learn how to cope with your pain, that you can get up and move, that, you can involve your partner however you want to be involved. Some partners just want to kick back and drink a beer and watch the game. Others want to be hands-on.
Wait, that was a choice?
Yeah.
I didn't know
It
that.
was not a choice. He was like,
Hold up.
we had a long
Nobody told me there could
conversation
be
about- he was
beer
like,
in the
I don't know if I
OR.
want to be in the room. I'm like, you're going to be in the room. That's
If
happening.
there had been beer in the OR, it wouldn't have been a question at all.
Every couple is different.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
back in the old timey days, didn't the guys just hang out in another room?
Well,
while
they were
smoke
kicked
cigars.
out. Even if they wanted to be in there, they couldn't be in
Oh.
there.
Oh,
And
really?
that's actually one of the things that triggered the natural birth movement, or the unmedicated birth movement, is that partners wanted to be involved.
Right.
And
You want to make sure
and-
she's safe.
Right,
you're
and the
there
pregnant
for her.
person
Yeah.
wanted their partner in the
They
room
don't
with
be
them because
isolated.
just you being there is comforting.
Yeah.
And-
Sometimes we like you. Sometimes.
Right, right. And
Probably
so
not in those moments, though. You're pretty pissed. You put it in me. This is your fault.
That's what you see in all the comics, or what are those little comedy shows? They always have them like getting really mad at their partners.
Right.
Does that happen
Does
often?
that?
it's not often,
Yeah.
but,
Oh,
but
really?
sometimes it does happen.
some-
Maybe
Sometimes.
finger
Sometimes.
breaking.
Yeah,
kind of people.
they'll just break my fingers and you're safe then,
Yeah.
buddy. No, but everybody just needs to know that they have lots and lots of choices. They can question what's being offered to them. They're entitled to information, and they don't have to do everything that's offered up. And birth can be a comfortable and rewarding experience. It doesn't have to be scary.
Yeah.
And so having a consultant or an advocate with you in the room is a pretty crucial part of that process, especially for first timers.
Yeah.
Because you've never done it before.
What got you into this field?
Oh my gosh.
Do you get asked that a lot?
Yeah.
I get asked that a lot.
Well, it's a funny story. A lot of people who do this work they feel a calling, or they feel inspired. They just love moms and babies. And I actually never wanted kids.
You have kids, right?
I do. I have 2 children.
You're like, I wanted nothing to do with you.
Yeah,
I
no.
want you, but you're there, so we're going to deal with this.
I had to raise my brothers and sisters. So by the time I was in college, I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah, you'd already
that
spent.
before.
Right. So my best friend, we owned a 2-family flat downtown, and they lived upstairs and we lived downstairs, and I had home births, which doesn't mean that I want my clients to have home births. 80% of my clients deliver in the hospital. So, but I chose home birth for myself because I was a nice low risk pregnancy. So I delivered my baby at home. This was my son, my second child, and I told my best friend who lived upstairs, I said, hey man, I just want you to take care of my daughter, and then you need to get out when it's time to have the baby. Like, I don't want you there. This is an intimate space. Well, my best friend's very sneaky. And she decided to kind of hide out in the corner. So she totally disrespected my wishes. But it was fascinating to her. I mean, if you think about it, like, women aren't exposed to birth anymore.
That's funny.
We
She
don't
hid in
see
the
each other.
corner?
She did. That
Wait,
little
like up out of
seed.
your view or something? Like,
I had no idea she was in the room.
Oh my
you were
God.
too intense.
I was doing something really important.
Yeah.
And
I'm
so,
assuming it's intense.
yeah, it's very intense.
Yeah.
And so she kept herself small. Anyway, so it changed her life to be able to see that. And she said, oh my gosh, that was amazing. When I have kids, I loved what your doula did for you. Would you be my doula? And I said, you're nuts. No way.
She asked you to be a doula.
She asked me to be a doula.
Never considered doula.
Never considered it.
Before
no,
that.
No, I
ship.
got
I
got my bachelor's in music. Like, I was like, no way. And so then when she got pregnant, she really pressed me. And my doula said, you know what? You'd be a really great doula. You should probably consider it.
That's cool.
And so then I got my training just for her and fell in love with it, and it lit a fire, and I've never looked back.
What makes a good doula?
Oh.
That's a great question. So somebody who can listen a lot,
Yeah.
and someone who doesn't impose their own preferences for the experience on you.
That's
I'm
good.
sorry, I stopped listening to
Yeah.
you. No, I'm just,
Do you need me to repeat that?
no, I'm totally just.
I respect and honor your
She
place
said you
right
had
now.
to be a good listener.
Like, yeah, I checked
As a
out.
therapist, you're an excellent listener, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know
I
all about
so
that.
am. I don't just nod and say yes. I promise.
Right. So a good doula has to have those good communication skills and has to have their own personal boundaries so that they're not out to make their birth, making up for their birth experience. Nobody wants that doula because then they're not giving you what you want.
Right. They're
So-
pushing for their own needs, weirdly.
Well, right. They're kind of living vicariously
Yeah.
through their clients.
Like a mom with a daughter or son that they're trying to make be an actor or singer or something. Same thing.
Yeah, they
like
wanna
I wanted to have a
relive
natural
their
birth,
experience.
so I
Somebody
want to
else's.
make sure you do it exactly the way I thought it was right, or
So
if I didn't get
that
to,
doesn't make
something
for a
like that.
good doula.
That's right. And some of
I
those
see.
doulas wind up going to battle with staff members, which is never a good experience
Like
for
arguing
anybody.
with the doctors
Arguing
or
with the
nurses?
doctors, arguing with the nurses. And some of doulas like to push the limits too with their scope of practice. So they'll want to like try to be the medical professional and give you recommendations
Give medical
that maybe aren't
opinions
appropriate.
where they're not supposed
Yeah.
to.
Right.
Really.
So personal understanding your boundaries as a doula makes a good doula.
Okay.
Yeah. And of course, knowing birth is also really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Knowing
too.
what
Knowing about some of
happens,
the
being
steps.
educated and
Yeah.
understanding all of that. That's
Well,
good.
actually, that might be good to go through. Like, I mean, not everybody here who's listening has ever given birth. So, what are some of the stages they should expect in birth?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh,
like
you
a
guys.
big
I have
science
no idea.
lesson here, right?
Yes.
I'm like, I don't know.
Well, first you have a baby inside you, and then it comes
Yeah.
out.
No. Before
that
that,
easy?
you have sex, right?
Uh-huh.
You have to have sex.
no,
and then,
no.
Well,
like-
no, not all the time.
Hold on.
That's true. That's true.
Because
Actually,
I have helped
the
lesbian
stork will
couples.
show up and have sex with your wife. On
That's
occasion,
right. That's
too.
right. This is like we need to give medically accurate
And
information
then
here.
9 months later, the
Then
stork comes back
and delivers, the baby.
for
Yeah,
you.
that's
Yeah,
our,
and you
that's
don't
our
need a
story.
doula. So this is, yeah.
No, you got a stork.
Right.
It's the Vlasic one too.
Oh my gosh.
It's a
Yeah.
Pickle guy.
plastic stork?
He's a
Wow,
dapper
is he
fellow,
like,
right?
Does
With
he
his
have
glasses
several
and
jobs
his
or
vest.
something?
He's like,
Well, don't all
you
storks?
better push.
Why do they have extra jobs?
What?
I don't know. Why is there a stork that represents Vlasic pickles? I have
I
no
don't
idea.
know.
I don't know why storks became
Why
a
are we
big part of
talking about
birth.
pickles? Go
Because
to the
I'm-
stages of pregnancy.
I'm trying to take you down a bunny trail. That's why.
I know.
So-
I love it. I love it.
The funny thing about, or the interesting about labor and birth is that it's predictably unpredictable. So I could walk you through the textbook. Okay, the textbook is you go into labor. Your body starts contracting. Your uterus starts squeezing the baby. It starts pulling the bottom part of your uterus up and apart. That's your cervix. So it pulls your cervix short, and then it opens up on the inside. So during that part, that's called labor. It's first stage labor, the dilation and laboring part. And it starts out usually pretty slow, where you kind of feel crampy and weird every 10 minutes. And then it gets progressively closer together, more intense. Contractions last longer, to where you really have to kind of focus on what's happening on the inside of your body.
Yeah.
And then it will reach a point where you feel like you can't do it anymore. Like you're just dying, like you're going to break in half. Like
that's when you
this
cancel
is
it.
so overwhelming.
This doesn't sound like a great experience.
No, it's an intense experience, but your approach is what makes it easier to endure, right? So if we walk in understanding that our bodies are already made to do it, and that we have systems already in place. So chemicals that are released play a big part into that, and setting the stage and the atmosphere for the person to be comfortable when it's happening. So it's a lot like sex. So when you have sex, most people, when most humans have sex, it's an intimate experience. Consent needs to be a part of that. The environment needs to be safe. Usually there's some dim lighting, some touching. And so setting that stage
At least one dungeon room.
At least one dungeon, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And so we need
something that vibrates.
Yeah, vibrators.
That
those
sometimes
are nice.
is helpful too.
Yeah.
Well, sex can sometimes trigger labor too.
Yeah.
But we want
talk about that.
them to be comfortable as possible. And so when we have that mental set, already there, then it makes coping with the pain easier. Anyhow, so once we reach the point where we say we can't do it anymore is about the time when the body's finishing dilation and the baby's going to come.
So that's when it's time to actually do it, but that's when they're ready to give up.
That's when they're
Oh yeah,
and this is when most people get the
hard.
epidural, right? Most people get the epidural when they're between 6 and 10 centimeters dilated, when the show's about to be over, and the hard work starts right before the pushing. So once we get through that, I know it's interesting to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, because like they're almost done, but like it's just been so painful. They're like, screw this, I don't want to do it anymore.
Does it get more painful though?
Sometimes
at that point,
but most of the time it doesn't. So when we push
with the breaching
baby,
and the pushing, that doesn't make it more painful.
I heard it feels
Usually
like a big
not.
poop.
No?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It kind of does feel like a big poop.
Yeah.
When the baby's head is stretching all of your tissues down there, though, that can be like a burning sensation.
Yeah.
Like if you take your mouth and you stretch it as wide as you
Yeah,
can,
you
that
get that
burning.
kinda cutting
Oh, I've
on
heard
the
that.
edges.
I've heard that.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I've had a big poop like that before.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is
Like
like
it came out and it was a
after
baby's arm, you know.
this is like the biggest.
Yeah.
But
it was
so,
pretty big. I had to reach.
That was a
back
pretty
in.
big meal. Oh gosh. Why did you go there?
I went
It's okay.
there.
He's
Nobody's
sick. We're
listening.
gonna give him a pass.
my brother Josh is kind of like that too. Maybe it's in the name.
Yeah.
It often
We're
goes
always
to poop.
joshing around.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Oh my
Yeah, I have
goodness.
to go kill
Get us
myself
back
now.
on track, Jim.
Okay.
That's all right. So we're
What were we doing?
pushing.
So we're pushing.
We're pushing, not
So
poop. We're
my
pushing a
cervix
baby.
is dilated. My uterus is
It's
contracted,
pushing down
and
the
it's pushing
baby.
down on the
Yeah.
baby.
Saying, get
Okay.
out of here,
Saying,
baby.
"Get
So
out."
what happens next with
So
my body?
the mother bears down instinctually usually, and the baby slowly makes a turn around the bones of the pelvis and starts descending out of the vagina. And there's pushing happening usually about every 3 to 5 minutes, resting in between. And then the baby's head is born, and then the baby's body is born, and voila, we've had
There you go.
a
Baby.
baby.
You've
Yeah.
created
You win.
life.
And for first timers, it's usually about a 24-hour experience. So from
wow.
I think I'm in labor to it not being so hard, just kind of annoying, to baby in arms is usually about
That's
24
a
hours.
long day.
It is,
Yeah.
We
but
got
most
lucky
of it
with
is spent
C-section.
out of pain,
Yeah.
right? Because the contractions come and they go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So figuring out how to work with that is important.
Yeah.
If
I
that's
didn't
what you
have
want to do.
contractions. So like my water broke before, and so we had to do technically an emergency C-section, but it was already
the next
scheduled
morning.
for
Yeah.
like the next day or the 2 days later. So like I did get to experience that, and I like jumped out of bed and I was like, oh my god, my water broke, and he's like, get off the carpet.
She ran across the house.
I didn't know it was gonna keep going.
I
That's
had to
something
sell
weird.
that
Yeah,
house.
Like
that's
when your
something to
water
know.
breaks, it keeps going. It's not like one pouch of water and
No.
then you're done.
Right.
No, like it was a process that I was not prepared for.
Right, and if you had a doula, you would have called your doula and she would have said, now be prepared. Put on a pad, it's going to keep coming.
Yep, I had to have like a towel. It was
Yeah.
really weird.
I wouldn't let her in the car without a towel.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it
you
just
already
started
ruined the
happening.
carpet.
I did. It was in the last house though. This house
Yeah.
is fine.
That's why we
Okay.
sold it, right?
Well, it all cleans up. It's just organic matter.
Yeah, whatever. Well, so there's some things on there about sex.
So you were on here. You mentioned normal psychological birth. What does that mean? Normal.
So the normal birth is different than common birth, right? So the common birth is the scenario that I described, where we have our contractions, we freak out, we get the epidural, we have baby. So physiologic birth or normal birth is the realization of your body's potential without all the medication. Okay, so some people want that experience. Not all people do. I mean, some people hire a doula and they're like, I want an epidural at 7 centimeters, and I want you, doula, to help me get there. So, and I do that. I do elective cesareans, all the things. But so a normal physiologic birth is letting the body do its thing and working with it. So that's what I'm an expert in. So your nurse is an expert at managing your labor and monitoring things. Your doctor is an expert at the delivery and the immediate postpartum. And a doula is the expert at labor. So I see labor. I know how to help manage it. I know how to work with it. I know how to problem solve if some things come up. And doctors and nurses don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So
they kind of just tell you what to do, or like.
Well, they say, here, I have this drug that will help you with that.
They just say no. They just say, I'm going to give you this drug. They really don't even ask.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
and you
that's
can
true.
say no, but they just say, I'm going to give you this, or take this.
Well, and most people don't walk in knowing that they can say no.
Right.
And they also don't know how to cope. And so the doula helps them figure that out ahead of time and work through it. Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah, but there are some parallels with sex for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about parallels in pregnancy or birth and sex.
Birth
and sex.
Birth
So
and
it's
sex.
the same organs, of course, are used.
Yeah, I
right?
hear there's a vagina involved.
Yeah.
There is a vagina involved. Yeah. But the same hormones are used. They're just, they're massively, massively increased. So, oxytocin, which is what makes you, or orgasm, right, is the same hormone that ejects the baby out of your body. But you're experiencing way more oxytocin, right? The positions are often the same. So we mentioned the hands and knees thing, right? So doggy style.
It could happen.
Right, it could happen. Lying on your sides, sometimes sitting in a chair, squatting down over something. They're very similar positions, and the things that we need during sex, like I mentioned before, those are all similar. So sometimes the noises we make are the same during birth as when we're
There's
having
a lot
sex.
of like
so sometimes
50 cc's stat. I say that in the bed all the time.
I know.
He does. It's
A lot
really
of role
awkward.
playing going on over here.
I watch way too much ER during sex.
Well, I mean,
How does this have to do with sex?
Well, when a mother is experiencing some contractions, especially when they're starting to get a little harder, she'll vocalize, and so there'll be a lot of
grunting and moaning,
grunting and moaning, and sometimes people will orgasm when they deliver their babies.
Really?
Well,
Interesting.
again, because of the
same
anatomy,
organ,
because of what's being stimulated, all the hormones are happening. Sometimes they're just in that much of a safe mind frame that those things are stimulated, and that happens for them.
Oh, well, that's nice. That would be a nice way to give birth.
It would be
an orgasm. I will do that twice.
We can't plan for it, but sometimes it happens that way.
Yeah, sometimes it happens.
Well, and something on there you said was that like sometimes you'll suggest they actually have sex,
Have sex,
or make out or something.
Why is that?
Right. Well, sometimes labor is slow.
Yeah.
A mother wants to keep things going, right? She's tired of being in labor for 12 hours, and oh my gosh, how can I get this going? Well, let's start stimulating those hormones, right?
Okay.
So start to cuddle with your partner, kiss, make out. Sometimes just even if she's not the recipient, even if she gives a blowjob, sometimes that's enough to start some emotions going and some hormones.
She's like got labor, and you're like, why don't you give your husband a
works out
blowjob? I mean,
great.
he's doing
Yeah.
so much work.
Well,
up to
all
this
I'm saying
point.
is that when we're in labor and we want it to really move, sometimes we get desperate.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
So having sex and getting those hormones going can really stimulate things. And even to initiate the labor process, having sex twice within 24 hours with ejaculation, there's prostaglandins in sperm and semen, and it will stimulate the cervix to open up.
Oh, wow.
So
That's interesting.
Our bodies are pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So like women's bodies, are you saying that women's bodies outside of pregnancy are stimulated by semen then?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
That can be a turn on perhaps ladies
yeah.
who say, I don't like blowjobs. Because I hear that a lot. I was just throwing it out there. Like women are always like, they really hate it. And but it's funny when I actually go in depth into that, usually it's that they've either learned how to do it through porn and they think they have to deep deep throat, which is not true, ladies. Or they just are unsure of what to do or how to do it. And so they're like worried about their performance. And it's not so much about the penis or the penis not being pretty or anything, which, by the way, penises are pretty. I think they're very lovely.
Oh, they're gorgeous.
Yes. But so like to know that maybe, cum is a good thing for you might encourage some women to explore.
Oh, yeah. It's good for your skin, too. Right?
And it's good. Well, it's good for your vagina. I mean, it has some antimicrobial properties, so it can help stave off like yeast and things like that, as long as your partner isn't yeasty, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're yeasty, she's yeasty. But
I know that.
It can help clean it up.
All right, good to know.
So you also mentioned breastfeeding. The association with breasts as a culturally sexual organ.
My gosh,
what do you mean by that?
So, breasts are often thought of as sex toys, right? And even
they can be.
They can be.
But they can also be other things, I hear.
Yes. Apparently, they're the givers of life.
Yeah.
Right.
That old thing.
Yeah. They're actually giant glands, right? So my clients will always say, well, they're just bags of fat. And they do have fat around them and through them, but they're actually giant glands that produce milk to feed your baby.
Produces it,
Yeah, and they're part of the endocrine system, and it's just fascinating. But so a lot of folks that have the baby, they're pregnant with the babies themselves, or their partners will just have a deep sexual connection to these breasts, and they'll have a hard time letting that role go, or trying to switch their mentality to it being the giver of life for the baby, rather than just something sexual. And so sometimes that's a process for people. Sometimes we'll have to have some pretty frank conversations about, what are your feelings about breasts, Angela? Can you tell me about
I think they're beautiful.
Yeah, awesome, right? So, but what about your baby touching them? How does that make you feel?
I will say I remember, so I breastfed for a while, and I remember it was actually a very intimate experience to breastfeed. As sex therapists, I've had I've been to conferences where they talk about it being kind of a sexual and an intimate thing. Not that you're sexualizing your baby, but that there's an intimacy to the breastfeeding that connects you to the baby in a way that you've never really been connected to something before.
Yeah, it can be intimate without being sexual.
Yeah, well, I guess, I don't know, but it's still, there was some pleasure involved, and so it was just interesting. But anyhow,
but they have a use. Yeah. And yes, they can be stimulated during sex, but so can other parts of your body. We don't consider the back of your neck a sexual organ.
That's right. That's
the reality is, they're beautiful, great to look at, but they have
I'm really interested in your opinion on this too, because remember when
I like sharing my opinion.
No, when I was breastfeeding, do you remember did they become not as sexual to you during that time?
If they were sticky with breast milk or something, or we didn't.
Because I remember they.
How much detail? Yeah, I'm not gonna.
I don't care.
I'm not gonna bat them around as much, Because
I was
they
really
might leak.
Uncomfortable about leakage. That was something that was No,
I didn't.
That was something that we would discuss.
I didn't look at it as a dirty thing or anything. I saw it as more, they have a use right now.
Okay.
They'll come back to me.
Well, some people have a hard time
if you love something, let it go.
Let it go.
Yeah.
And then the boobs will return.
They'll return of their own volition.
And they return bigger. They return bigger than they went out.
Hey-o.
They were beautiful. God, I loved those breastfeeding
The breastfeeding boobs are awesome.
They were hot.
On the higher end of double Ds at that point.
Yeah, I remember. R.I.P.
with that.
breastfeeding boobs.
Oh, I know, right?
But they're pretty.
Those were the days.
But it's interesting to explore what people think about lactating breasts. Some partners are turned on by lactating breasts, and they want to partake in some of that. And maybe the person with breast isn't into that, or maybe
you mean they actually want to taste the breast milk?
They actually want to taste the breast milk and make that a part of their sexual experience.
Whereas maybe the other one feels a little awkward about
it. That's right. Or it's just for the baby, or that's my time with the babe.
Well, I mean, if you drink it all, then the baby won't.
Oh, that's not true. Your body's always making milk.
Oh, it's always making
actually, I was I used to pump right after I breastfed, and I became like a cow. I was just pumping that crap out.
Didn't you only really actually breastfeed the first 3 months, and then the
I had enough breast milk
for another
to last
3 to 4
another
months?
3 months after. But once I went to work, it was harder to milk. So it was good that I had essentially milked myself like a cow before I went back to work, because it didn't she
it's
would
because of the hormones, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to the feelings of pleasure that you have with your baby.
Tell me about pleasure, because I like that.
Well, we're back to those hormones that help you orgasm and have a baby. So oxytocin again is released when you nurse your baby. It releases milk. And you're producing hormones called prolactin that help you become addicted to your baby, right? You literally become addicted.
And
you want to nurture your baby.
They're
and it's
like
euphoric.
heroin.
Yeah, they are.
I was so
It's
sad.
baby
when she
crack.
stopped.
Oh, yeah.
I remember feeling this sense of deep, like, hurt when she stopped, and I just. I did.
Well, sure. You're letting go of a connection.
You're okay.
I know.
You
Keep
still,
telling us important
still
things.
That's all
I'm
right.
working through
So
the grief
it's
now.
pleasurable, right? It's an enjoyable experience. And when you
silly.
sever that connection, it's
silly.
sad. It's sad.
It
But
was.
so breasts are really important
Yeah,
for
she
lots
really
of
took
things.
it bad.
I did. Well,
It was-
what happened is
it was a
one
rough
morning,
week.
so my father-in-law lived with us at the time, and we started feeding her real food, and she was only breastfeeding in the morning. And then what happened is my father-in-law woke up before me, fed her food, and then she was just done. And I was like,
Off with his head.
but it was really,
No, he was
she
feeding
just
the
wanted
baby.
food,
Yeah.
you know, like she was more interested in the food than the milk. But God, my life was over then. I've claimed it back since then. I'm okay,
Yeah.
guys. But like at the time, I was pretty
It
hurt.
was pretty
Well,
hard.
it's a big deal. And
Yeah.
so when you remove your baby from that experience that causes you that pleasure, sometimes it's hard for women to pump when they're at work.
Oh,
because
yeah.
you're removing a player in the game. You're
Right.
removing that
Because
stimulus.
your hormones probably
I
respond to
heard
their
some
presence
women-
and their
That's right.
scent.
I heard
and
some women
their
will tape
touch.
the baby
Yeah.
All the
crying or
things, yeah.
something so that they play that before they try to pump at work.
Yeah.
Have pictures of your baby, have something that smells like your baby, because even though we don't use our noses instinctually anymore, like intentionally, it still is an important part of the system to help your body produce milk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
So
you can smell.
I know,
The
lots of
different
interesting.
things
Yeah,
going on.
yeah.
I can smell the difference.
Right. Well, I mean, you know that we release hormones when we have sex and things like that
course.
keep you attracted and engaged and wanting to. I mean, we use our noses all the time.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
Oh,
What are you telling me about your
I'm
nose?
watching
Something's
you.
happening.
Well, it's funny. So I used to work at a sex toy shop long ago before I became
Oh,
a
yeah.
sex
That was, like,
therapist.
11
and
years
one
ago.
way that people can like play with the vibrator, but in a safe way in public, is you put it on the end of your nose, because there's a lot of nerve endings at the end of your nose, and then you kind of feel what it'll feel like on your clitoris.
Oh, well, I learned something new today.
It was
Thank
so
you.
exciting. Like
That's
everybody who does
fascinating.
it, they're like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, it's a sensitive spot.
Oh, now I'm gonna have to go home and try
Sensitive.
that.
Now you're gonna do that with all your vibrators. Like, listen, look what's
This is the
happening.
one. I knew this was the good one. Oh my
Oh my
gosh.
gosh, you didn't know. Nose is important.
Now you know.
Right.
Well, so what are some interesting stories?
Oh man.
Are you allowed to tell stories? Because I know there's
I am.
confidentiality. Okay,
Well,
okay.
as long as I don't give away any
No
identifying
names, no
information.
identifying features.
That's
Before
right.
we get to some stories, why don't we talk a little bit about the primal brain?
Oh.
Like you
oh,
mentioned
you want to
that.
talk about primal brain
and the
Okay.
relationship
well,
to sex
okay,
and
okay.
birth and the safe space and all that. Like,
Yes.
what is it?
Oh,
What
there's so
safe
much
space do
information.
people need?
So-
for sex.
So that sex dungeon space again that we were
Oh, yeah.
referring to.
Sex
Yeah.
dungeon
So
safe space.
it needs to be safe. It needs to be dark. It needs to be somewhere where you can release all your inhibitions. And so this is why hospitals aren't always conducive to people who want to deliver without medication, because there's bright lights, there's interruption,
Like these.
there's
Lots of
eyeballs
people
on
coming
you.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
asking questions, needing you to come out of your hindbrain, you're out of your primal brain, and using your frontal cortex to answer those questions. So anytime we're disturbing a woman in labor, we're asking her to access this part of her brain that needs to turn off.
Right.
Right, we need to turn off
Because you
the part
also,
of the brain.
it actually helps to reduce pain when you shut off the
Yes.
primal, the front stuff.
The frontal cortex.
Because that's where you
Is that what people do when they're
discern
hypnosis, like doing the hypnosis? They're trying to shut down this place. Okay,
That's exactly right.
Interesting.
Very good. Very good.
The
So-
world is opened up to me.
and that's also why people dissociate with trauma.
Yeah,
It's
'cause it's
shut
safer.
off.
Yes,
Done.
exactly. Exactly. So we want women or people delivering babies to access that part of their brain. And if we don't create the atmosphere to do that and the safety to do that, then it's harder for them to deliver efficiently
Yeah.
and safely and in a space that doesn't induce trauma. So the primal brain is super important, and we need that part of our brain to deliver the blood to the uterus, and we need that part of our brain to shut down everything else that we don't need, like it slows our gut function so that we're no longer peeing and pooping all that much and we don't feel appetite.
That's
and-
helpful when you're on a table surrounded by 8 people.
Yeah.
Although I've heard them say that like you should be prepared for that to happen.
You should be prepared to poop.
Okay.
But a lot of
and
times you don't
yeah.
even know it.
Yeah.
You
won't
don't know
notice
it.
that
You
you're
didn't.
busy in the muck.
I told you
No,
afterward.
Did I?
Oh, you just found out. Okay.
I had no idea.
You totally did. And they were
was
just like
completely
scoop
numb, though,
and
so
throw.
whatever.
You had
Right.
you
I didn't
as soon as
care.
they numbed you, it was
I
just
was
like,
just like, give me my baby. I didn't care what happened down there.
It was like
as
a
long as
bass
they made
cannon.
me safe.
no,
'Cause,
you were
They
good.
sew you back up after a
They
C-section.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Thank
true.
goodness.
Yeah.
No, they don't just
Stay
leave you open and walk away. We're done. We got the baby.
Right,
Leave her
right.
on
All
the
right, leave her on
curb.
the table, fend for herself. What? That'd be
Did
terrible.
you know they don't actually pull your organs out of your body, right?
No.
Have you ever heard?
Yeah, I
have you
watched
heard
it.
that? Well, they take
They-
your
they
uterus and
cut-
they put it on your belly, but your organs, your innards, aren't pulled out and put on the table.
No.
And so some people
No.
think that.
No.
Oh, okay.
So I like to dispel that myth often.
No.
That's a good idea.
It's actually
to
really
talk
cool
about.
to watch.
It
Like they
is.
sliced her open and they kind of popped it open and then they reached in and cut the uterus, move all that stuff around, and then they start to pull the baby out and the head got stuck.
Oh no!
It got stuck right at the start, and they started counting. I was like, why are they counting? But they didn't get too far, and then the baby came out. It was
Yep.
awesome.
It is awesome.
was.
It was
Birth
like,
is really
boom,
awesome.
she's
and
a
he
person.
said he fell in love with her cry as soon as he
Oh,
heard it. It
yeah.
was so
Oh my
cute.
gosh.
I got over that, though.
Later, because she kept crying. She was the one of the loudest babies.
Yeah, she's
man.
colicky. We love her, though.
Man. Oh, I had one of those.
She's
Yeah, that's
awesome
rough.
now.
Oh,
though.
yeah, when we were in the, when you were staying there the next couple days, like, anytime she woke up crying, we could hear her all the way from our room.
Yeah.
And she would just wail, and all of a sudden we would hear a cart rolling up, and you'd hear the baby cry slowly get louder. We're like, yeah, she's
That's
coming.
That's ours.
She's
That's
coming
our
to get.
sweet pea right
She's coming
there.
to get some milk. Yep. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She was a hungry baby.
All right.
So,
Well, so I did
that's
want
the
to talk
primal
about
birth.
those stories.
you got a
Yeah.
story to
I have
share?
stories. I
Something
want to know
interesting?
some stories.
Oh well, there's so many stories. There's some good stories and bad stories.
Well, you
and
said
there's
there
some
was
funny
one.
Stories.
There was a story. You said you got spit upon.
I did get
Tell us
spit
that.
upon. So that was just this
Spitting
year.
story.
That was
Oh,
this
wow.
year,
So
yeah.
in all of my years, in my 13 years, I've never been spit on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had somebody bite me. I've had a finger broken.
Yeah.
So it's pretty high
Yeah.
risk
Pretty
job. It
challenging
sounds.
job
Yeah,
she's in
I've
here.
had people tell me I can go to hell. You know, I mean, there's lots of things that happen when you have a baby. But so this person in particular, she was trying to bear down and push her baby out. She was delivering unmedicated, and her partner reaches and gives her a sip of water in between her sensations to push. And so she takes this giant gulp of water, and so she's squatting down, and I'm below her. Because I was the midwife at the birth, so my hands are there. I'm touching this woman's vagina, getting ready to feel this baby's head crown. And I'm looking at her up at her, like right in her eyes and going, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. And so then she gets this big walloping contraction to push her baby out, and the water's still in her mouth. And she just looks at me and unloads. I mean, from the top of my head to down my shirt, just water everywhere.
I see. So it was really kind of an accident associated.
There wasn't
with
as much
the-
anger.
It
with
wasn't.
the
I was
No,
spitting.
expecting an angry spit, like
no.
get out of here.
Get out! How dare you?
But she didn't bother to turn her head. I mean, good Lord, she was having a baby, and she just unloaded all over me. And the nurse looks at me, and I look at the nurse, and I'm like, get me a towel? Can you help me out right now? I'm
Yeah.
sterile.
Yeah, that's fun.
So yeah, getting spit on is not usually part of the job, but that was the
No.
first time I've ever been
It's
spit.
an added benefit.
That's
though.
Oh
hilarious.
yeah, I was baptized.
Great fringe
At that
benefits right
moment.
there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, one thing you mentioned in there were like spiritual things you were a part of. What kinds of spiritual things have you been a
Sarah.
part
Oh
of?
my gosh! Well, I've been a part of a Wiccan delivery where we had to have pentagrams written out, and some
Okay.
spells were cast, and we had to burn
Interesting.
sage and light candles, and so that was an interesting one for sure. I've been anointed with oils in order to walk into the room and be a helpful servant to the
Yeah.
family.
You had to have some oil on
they
you
had
first.
to put their shoulder, their
How
hands
much
on my
oil?
shoulders.
Like, like a whole cup on your head.
That's a good question. No, they dabbed their fingers in it and then rubbed it on my forehead.
I see.
Okay.
Okay. And so they prayed over me, and then I had to pray with them. They told me what to say, and then I walked into the birth. I've had other times when I have to keep the room quiet when the baby is delivered, because in some cultures and some religions, the babies have to be born into silence. And so in in Sikh culture, the father has to be the first one to whisper a special prayer into the baby's ear.
Oh, that's
I
cute.
know.
Precious.
Really awesome.
Precious. precious.
Really
He's like,
awesome.
become a doctor. You will make good money.
You know, it actually reminds me of the Hindu wedding we went to recently. Like, they did a lot of blessings for like the parents and the kids getting married.
Colorful.
Like, it was very like sweet, and it seemed more about like the couple and a little less about like, I don't know, like the boring stuff that I see in Catholic weddings. Well, it's all Latin spoken.
Right. A lot of pomp, right?
Yep.
Well, babies in Hindu cultures also have to be born into a room of silence just so that they're not being inundated with information that they don't need right away, and so that it's a joyous experience.
They're going to have a lot on their plate. Don't overload them too early.
Exactly.
Like, the baby has a lot on his plate.
Oh, yeah.
Right, born into love. And
within the first week, their day planner's full.
Cocoon, and now it's cold and icy. I hate this place. Why is there light?
Right? Babies just start yelling right away.
And I just wanted to say that she has touched me several times very gently. So if you're interested in a doula, she has a very gentle and kind touch. So my guess is it's that gentle and soothing when you're helping women give birth.
Usually.
Every time I've been very much soothed.
Well, you have a hole in your sweater. It was on purpose.
So,
she has 2 holes on her shoulders, so it kind of makes it.
Hole in a sweater.
Like,
because I want to look pretty.
It's a doula hole, Jeff.
Yeah, it's a doula hole.
It's for her to soothe me.
It makes me rub it too.
Because you drive me mental.
Anyway.
No, I love him.
Yeah, whenever she has one that has like a hole in the back, we call that the kissy hole.
Kissy hole.
Yeah, kissy right there.
Adorable.
Yeah. She has another kissy hole.
That's adorable. My parents called the kissy hole the little divot you have in the back of your neck where your skull meets your neck.
Oh, yeah, I could see that as a kissy hole. It's very pretty.
I don't have a hole there, though.
It's not really a hole.
It's
right?
just supposed to kiss somebody, Josh.
I know. So, how does a baby affect your sex life? Like, that's
we should talk about things like, can they see the penis, and vibrators dangerous?
Well, you worry about
all kinds of
whether it's
going to
still be intact down there and working order.
Yeah,
that's
can you bang when you're pregnant?
You can bang when you're pregnant. Please do.
Yeah,
I think it's really important. I do.
It is. Well, I mean, the power that made the baby brings the baby.
Right.
It's good to keep that physical connection with your partner and keep that intimacy, because your partner is going to be a part of your birth most likely, and you want that to be a nice intimate space too. But really, babies don't see penises or dildos or toys, because it's all closed off.
Right.
Everything's
it's
closed
the
off.
uterus.
Right.
Yeah, it's inside the uterus. Baby can't see it. Baby can't feel it. Okay.
People worry about it punching the head of the baby.
yeah. Have you ever?
Maybe it'll feel some jostling around, like mom's dancing.
Yeah. Sometimes they wake up. I remember, like, she'd be like, "What's going on?"
Right, but they don't know what's going on.
They don't know.
That's always the greatest thing, to be having sex and get kicked in the face by the baby. It's like, what are you doing?
Well, have you? So my husband calls dimples dick dents, which is ridiculous. That's not actually a thing.
That is not a clinical term.
It's not a clinical
way
term.
that your baby might wake up when you exercise. The same thing may happen with, like the excitement of sex and the orgasm.
Physical exertion.
You know?
Absolutely. You should continue to have a healthy sex life. But the important things to know about that is that you should do your best to keep toys clean. That's the biggest message that I have here today. Really is toys are great.
Your toys.
Yeah. Don't be too rough with your toys when a person is pregnant. Okay. So everybody has their own threshold for roughness, and we're just going to check in with our partner as the baby gets bigger and heavier. Yeah. Things get a little swollen and sore down there. You bleed a little easier. So let's just keep that conversation going with your partner.
Be more gentle.
Be more gentle.
Well, I mean, even when you exercise when you're pregnant, they suggest the same. Like,
yeah,
I love exercise. I try to stay healthy, but I remember I had to kind of like take it back. And even the yoga you do when you're pregnant, they like put pillows under your back to help support. So like that's the same for even exercise too, you got to take it back. You can still exercise, but like be careful, listen to your body, and don't kill yourself.
Right, don't kill yourself, and be creative with positions.
Our PSA for today.
Right?
Don't kill yourself.
The more you know. Angela, don't kill
yourself from your local
you
sex
have
therapist.
The greatest PSAs ever.
I do.
Well, they're easy and they're
straightforward.
Although I think you've already done the don't kill yourself.
But it's
PSA.
an important one. I think it should be repeated. Okay.
I agree. Don't kill yourself
Don't
when you're having
yourself.
sex and you're pregnant.
How do we get to this?
Right, I know.
I don't know. I just always say stupid stuff.
I agree.
But important things all at the same time.
Okay.
But yeah, so positions are important with the don't kill yourself thing. Like, don't hurt yourself for your partner when you're pregnant, right?
So are there positions that aren't good during pregnancy?
When your baby is big and heavy, usually during the 3rd trimester, it's not the best idea to be lying on your back.
Okay,
so if
so
you
no
guys are like
missionary.
dyed-in-the-wool missionary folks,
Interesting.
get a little creative, okay? And so sometimes people will talk to their doula about that. Like, well, what do you mean I have to
Doggy
get creative?
style, go on top, maybe
Side
use a chair.
lying, okay?
Like a chair without these, and he can be on the bottom and you like sit on top of him. That's a good one.
Exactly.
Belly out because the belly gets kind of big.
yeah, backwards cowgirl is great.
And then if you have a chair here, then you can hold on to it and bear down. Similar to giving birth.
Exactly. Like I said, the parallels
They're
are there.
so close.
You can bend over the bed. Lots and lots
that
of
works.
things to do.
Oh yeah, that bed thing too. So on your back on the bed, but with your legs up, how would that be?
No,
for the,
so you
oh, you're
bend
not supposed
forward.
to be on your back. Oh,
you bend
okay,
forward
okay,
onto the bed,
okay.
so your feet on the
No
floor.
pile
bend
driver.
over.
No pile driver.
No pile driver
Got it,
while you're
got
pregnant.
No
it.
missionary.
Okay.
Yeah,
We
so
should
do be
a
careful.
whole episode on positions. I think that would be
You
really fun.
should. You
But anyhow, we're not
should.
on that episode right now.
No, not right now. That's
So
funny.
I
Do
want to
pay
talk about
attention to
that
that.
creativity too, though, right? So, like, I think sometimes people rely a lot on penis and vagina intercourse, and
Yes.
as the belly gets bigger, it can be a little harder. It doesn't mean you can't do it,
Yes.
but like, I would encourage incorporating like hand jobs, or as we call them, hand joys, blow jobs, or oral sex, a little bit more toys, because at times, just like this physical exertion can be tough for women and for men. They're like, I don't know where to put my hands because it's a big belly, you know.
Yeah.
And so even like doing some, but then being willing to switch up to doing other things,
Yeah.
being creative with your intimacy is important, but I think that's important for
It
everybody
is.
too.
Oh, I agree. And keeping the partner as incorporated into your sex life as you can, even if your level of interest is waning as a pregnant person. So, you know, your needs are important too, just like your needs are important. And so I like, you know, some
I just leave him on the sidelines until I need him. He's my sex
that's
slave.
often what the partners say. They go, Jen said.
Yeah. Jen said,
Jen
my
said
opinion
you-
matters.
Yeah.
My mommy also agrees.
They say that's about me too. They're like, well, Angela said
That's
this,
right.
Yeah.
That's right. We're
We get away
we're
with
delivering
a lot of
important
stuff.
messages here. But sometimes pregnant people are told that they can't engage in intercourse, right? So if they're on pelvic rest because we're worried about preterm labor,
I see.
Okay.
or if they happen to bleed, or if their placenta's too low, then they can't have intercourse. But I like to tell my clients, and I told this to my students for years, just because the ride is shut down doesn't mean the park is closed. Okay.
There's outer course.
So-
There's outer
yeah, there's
course,
outer
as one of my
course.
favorite doctors says.
That's exactly right. So just get creative, make each other
Yeah.
happy in other ways. Stimulation with your hands is a great way to do it when you can't go on the inside.
Well, and that is true for after, right? So, like, after you have a baby, there is just this train wreck of blood, like, exists for a
For
good
4 to
6
6 weeks.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, it was terrible. I had no idea what to expect, and it was pretty nasty. But
Yeah,
anyhow,
even with
during
the
that
C-section.
time,
Yeah.
even with the
Yeah. I
C-section,
didn't know
your
that
uterus
at all.
was still pregnant, and it has
Yeah.
to get rid of
Yeah.
that lining.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I thought it would still just be ready to go, but
yeah.
nope,
No.
that did not
Gotta
happen.
wait.
It was not, and actually, it was
6
interesting. My
weeks.
vagina shifted too. Like, I had a little bit of pain after during intercourse after the C-section. And I was like, "That's so weird. How did that happen?" Because I thought because of the C-section, I'd be prevented from it. Not the case, ladies. So anyhow, during that 4 to 6 weeks, you guys can still be intimate, but again, it has to do with this creativity. And I think because they say you're not allowed to have sex, they shut that down. But what I see is that starts the distancing between the parents until then they have their second kid, and then they start
Yeah.
having a sexless marriage, and then they end up
Yeah,
seeing
yeah,
me
yeah.
later.
You can't take sex out of the marriage.
You should
because the
never
reality
have
is
that.
that's why we're married.
Yeah.
If I wanted to not have sex with you, I could just be your friend, and then it's a lot easier.
There'd be a lot less work involved.
I don't
want
to be your friend, so you know.
We are
I'm your
friends, but
husband.
just,
No,
there's
you're
a
my best
difference,
friend.
right? Yeah,
Right.
of course.
Right. And sometimes you don't have to wait that full 4 to 6 weeks. It just depends on the circumstances. So
Yeah.
sometimes we have most of the time when we deliver a baby right, good and proper, right, we're not digging around in there with our hands, we're not yanking down on our vagina
my
trying to get the
gosh.
baby out. I've seen a lot. Okay.
I never
Oh,
did that.
wow.
You know, she hasn't been cut. She didn't tear that deep. Sometimes we can resume intercourse a little sooner, just depending on the situation down there. So making sure that you have a provider that's going to take care of your business when your baby's being delivered is a really important conversation to have.
Yeah.
You know, is your
Be
doctor going to
careful
make
with
you
me.
deliver on your back where it increases the risk of tearing? Is your doctor going to use hands, instruments, tools? You know, what's
Yeah.
your doc's MO?
Yeah, I saw like video of a pregnancy, and they were using a big vacuum to pull the baby's head out.
Sometimes they need to do that. Now, if there's
That seemed a
necessity,
bit-
that's different.
Sure,
You're
if
not
there's a
saying you're
medical
against them.
necessity.
you're just saying
I'm not
you want
against
people to have
anything.
options.
But I mean, the
Yes.
skull.
and that not like maybe a first course sort of thing.
Right.
And the
'Cause-
consumer deserves to know what they're getting into. Who am I hiring? You know,
Yeah.
how are you going to treat this?
But like with the vacuum thing, like the skull is more pliable at that point. It's very squishy. Like, doesn't that make cone heads?
So the vaginal canal, actually the bony pelvis and the vaginal canal, and the duration that the baby spends in the vaginal canal is what makes the cone head.
Yeah.
Now the vacuum will make like a swollen knot or
Oh.
knob at the end of the head sometimes because
Because it is a vacuum.
well, because it's a vacuum. But sometimes it's really necessary.
But is it safe? Like, does that thing cause any brain damage or anything?
It doesn't cause brain damage, but
Okay.
sometimes it can cause bleeding
Okay.
and bruising and things like that.
On the baby?
On the baby.
Oh, that's
Well,
scary.
but if you're
But
using
you-
a
but if
vacuum
you're
to save your baby's
dangerous,
life,
yeah,
then it's,
Yeah.
then it's
a live baby with a
consolation.
little bit of bleeding
If
or
it's
no
necessary.
baby.
That's right.
I
But no,
understand.
the
That's scary.
pregnancy I watched that had
gotta be
that
pretty
it wasn't
dangerous.
An
It wasn't an emergency.
No, they just did it
Yeah.
because they want to get it out, get done.
You got that
They're
right.
done.
And so
Yeah.
that's why it's important to hire somebody that they have your best interests in
Yeah,
mind, or that they
definitely.
mirror your own philosophy with how you want to deliver your baby. Those conversations are important.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Yeah, I was worried about that when we were planning for the baby, but we ended up with C-section, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, but it's. I mean, what I hear is there's just a lot of different things that can happen. It can be dangerous at times, so you want to know what options are
And
out
there's
there.
so many different things to
You
know.
wanna be safe.
That's the
So
hard
many.
thing. Like,
That's scary.
you can't even go over it all in one podcast. Like,
I
we
know.
really
There's-
can.
we've
We-
really
you
been
guys, we
talking
could
for
talk
a
for a
we
long
just
time.
touched the surface on it.
Yeah.
I'm sure she wants to eventually get home to her family, Josh.
Sure. Well, we're right about at 50 minutes, so you want to wrap it up?
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Are there any things
welcome.
you want to plug?
Oh, well, there's a book that was written by a great author, a physical therapist called Isa Herrera. And she wrote this book called Ending Female Pain. That is really important for reestablishing a sex life after birth has maybe damaged some parts, poor body mechanics after you deliver. Who knows? But Ending Female Pain is a great book for anybody who wants to look into that for their own sexual satisfaction and delivering more babies.
Yeah.
Another one is When Survivors Give Birth by Penny Simkin. So a lot of women, unfortunately, have been sexually abused.
Yeah.
And that can color what happens when you deliver a baby. Some, because people are touching those parts. Maybe
Right.
sometimes
People
some
you're not
consent
used
It
to
can
isn't
being
also
being
color
given.
sex, by the way. Throw that in there.
Absolutely.
What?
I do a lot of work with women who've been affected, and men who've been affected by trauma, and it can affect your sex life too, because people can have triggers during it.